So I've saved the hardest question for the CFO, which really, I think for most of us is what this comes down to, is how is a project like this financed? Maybe if you can take us through a little bit. One, there's always the questions out there when a project like this comes. Well, how come the Braves or Mandalay don't build the stadium? But then number two, beyond that, what are some potential scenarios, or how have other communities done this in financial terms?
The Atlanta Braves, in owning our minor league clubs, we've built and relocated 3 clubs in the past 10 years. Rome, Georgia, the first project that we built and relocated was paid for by a special local option sales tax, an initiative that basically had paid off the stadium before the ballpark ever opened. Mississippi, a couple of years later, was paid for. We pay rent in every one of these facilities, by the way. Was paid for through a tourism bond initiative. The state of Mississippi to promote tourism had this financing opportunity out there. That facility was roughly a $23 million facility, and as Bobby alluded to, was in the middle of nowhere. It was farmland when we first went out there. Today there's a Bass Pro Shop, which was part of the tourism initiative. Several hotels and restaurants that have come up along beside it. Our last venture was Gwinnett County, Georgia, and that is paid through by a bond obligation. In all those cases, we pay a fair amount of rent. The landlord is the municipality or a governmental body that retains the facility if we were to ever leave. In all those cases, we're 20-plus year rent obligations, lease obligations, so we're committed to those communities for that length of time. And the reason why we own our clubs, as John alluded to, it gives us control. It also, we do make a little bit of money on it. We know we're going to have to field a Carolina League club, and we have a commitment of investing in developing those players at roughly $1 million a year. And so to the extent that the ownership of those clubs gives us the ability to get some return back on that, reduces our $1 million obligation, which we funnel back into scouting and player development, and keeps that pipeline running of talent. And here, I really can't say where we are in terms of financing on this project, but the Braves and Mandalay together expect to pay, 20 to 25% of the obligation through some form of rent, and beyond that, I think that's really more of a city council mayoral question as how they would finance it.
Mm-hmm. Rob, if I could just piggyback on that for a second. Between the Braves and Mandalay, we own and/or operate 11 minor league teams, and if you noticed, and if you haven't, please take the time to look at the poster-size blow-up pictures of our new ballparks collectively. Across the landscape in this country of minor league baseball facilities, you're not going to find one that was ever built with 100% private funds. It just doesn't pencil out. And forget baseball for the moment. You're all business people in here. Nobody's going to start a company when you know it pencils out to lose a couple $1 million a year. And if we or any minor league owner-operator were to build the facility the way facilities are built now, that's the type of metric that we'd be looking at. So these have to be public-private partnerships. And the reality is the company, the baseball company, using this specific example, we're going to sell our tickets, we're going to sell our sponsorships and our concessions and merchandise, and we have expense line items, and we're going to generate an ROI on our original investment of the team, which is not insignificant. The cost of the team and the ramp-up costs will be somewhere between $10 to $12 million. So we want to generate a reasonable ROI on that investment, and it's finite, it's not infinite. Where the economic development piece comes in, and our projections, as the mayor alluded to, call for us drawing 350,000 people a year to this anchor tenant. And that's a pretty significant number. And the economic development around the ballpark that could happen certainly adds exponentially to that positive economic impact. But the ballpark alone, we're confident when the analysis is completed, will show that there is a very fair and attractive return on investment for whatever the public sector ultimately commits to this project.
Mayor, can you take us through a little bit with, obviously no investment is worth an unlimited amount of money up front. How do you assess the potential impact of this, and when you think it does make sense for the city, and at what point it crosses a line?
At the end of the day, it's about jobs. It's about what we feel the economic impact around the stadium would produce, the amount of tax base that would be generated because of that, the amount of sales taxes that would be generated because of that. And you have to factor all of that in together to determine whether you think this is a good deal or not. And then, of course, the multiplier effect is if you have over 300,000 people that are visiting this facility, what are they going to spend outside of the facility? Where are they going to spend in restaurants? Where are they going to spend staying in hotels? Where are they going to spend in buying things within the community? We use the same multiplier effect, if you want to use that in that respect, with the beach renourishment, by putting sand on the beaches. A lot of people say, well, that's maybe a crazy deal to put sand on the beaches. It's eroded with the sand or northeaster or hurricane. But we do it because we want to bring people down to the community and stay in hotels, and eat at our restaurants, and go out. It helps us, the local level, especially the city council and the county commissioners, offset some of the service costs that we have to provide you, the citizens, because of that sales tax revenue that's generated because of that tourist dollar that comes into our community. So at the end of the day, this is a tourist-related endeavor. This is an economic development endeavor, and how much we can generate from this particular stadium based on sales taxes, property taxes, and all the other stuff, it will determine whether we feel this is a good deal or not. I also want to point out that the state of North Carolina will also get a considerable amount of money on this particular deal from the sale of tickets. There's a fee that goes directly to the state of North Carolina. The state of North Carolina gets money, the county gets money, the city gets money. And then, of course, all the economic development that's generated to the private sector is also another thing that we're going to have to calculate. So we're in the process of hiring a project manager that will drill down and look at all of these numbers, and then the city council hopefully will make a very good decision, one way or the other, as to whether we feel this is good or not. But I think that we have the players up here today, the entities up here, the businesses up here, that are willing to make a long-term commitment to this community. And I applaud the city council because it was a unanimous vote. And, you know, to get 7 people to unanimously decide on anything sometimes is difficult. But we felt important enough, we felt that this is an economic development initiative that is important enough that we should evaluate it thoroughly, and that's what we're doing.
Okay. We have a question from the audience, table 22, Jeff Cook. Make sure you get a microphone.
Going back to Lynchburg, Virginia, what were your reasons for leaving Lynchburg, and how does Lynchburg compare to Wilmington?
I'll start.
Go ahead, Chip.
Chime in. For the Braves, we don't own Lynchburg. We've been in Lynchburg. This was our first season, and the way minor league baseball works, you're under player development agreements per se, unless you own the club. And for us, the chance to have ownership in Wilmington also gives us a chance to provide stability for our players in terms of knowing that we're going to be a part of that community for the next 20 years and not be moving from, in this case, Myrtle Beach to Lynchburg to some other, hopefully Carolina League city, or worst case, a California League city, because those are the 2 high A leagues within minor league baseball. So this gives us stability from a player development standpoint in terms of this Wilmington option.
We were committed to Myrtle Beach for a long while. You may recall the owner of that franchise, Chuck Greenberg, then became owner of the Major League Texas Rangers. And in that move, wanted to bring that grand Myrtle Beach franchise, the Pelicans, which we were so proud to be a part of. We didn't have any ownership in it. It was the rare outlier for us in terms of ownership. He wanted them to become part of the Texas Rangers organization, understandably. And so we had to find another spot to build on Chip's point. It was either go to the California League or thank heavens, the good folks of Lynchburg wanted us to be there. And it was in close proximity to our organization. They welcomed us. They wanted us there. They had the Cincinnati Reds there for a couple of years before that, but did not want to continue their relationship with Cincinnati. They preferred to have a Braves team. We were fortunate that they wanted us, even though we did not want to leave Myrtle Beach, because we loved that facility. So, but then when we got into communications with Rich and Art and the Mandalay people, we know the quality of their organization. We're regarded as the gold standard major league organization by the commissioner's office and everybody else in baseball. And to have an opportunity to partner with a group that is regarded in that fashion in minor league baseball like Mandalay, we thought this was an absolute great partnership. And to have an opportunity to come to a jewel city like Wilmington, North Carolina, if it works, we thought that was a great thing for us to do. We have promised the good folks in Lynchburg, Virginia, that they would have Braves baseball, even though we move our Class A facility, our franchise out of there, and we intend to do that in some manner.
The next question at table 23, Ashley.
Yeah, let me make sure I know what I wrote here. Who would be responsible for generating the corporate relationships for finance and sponsorship? Would it be the city as the owner of the park? And what's the experience of members of the panel in generating those relationships with the corporate world?
Great question. The operational responsibility for this facility would fall with the Mandalay and Braves ownership group, and we would be the ones responsible for all of the sponsorship, relationships, and sales. Certainly, we would be in close communication and contact with the city leaders politically to help us in any way they can develop those relationships. But on an ongoing basis, it's the team owner-operator that develops sponsorship relationships.
And just to go one step further, it'd be very similar to the agreement that we have with SMG that operates the convention center. There would be certain guidelines that the city council would put into place, negotiated with the Braves and Mandalay, that we would agree upon, and they would obviously operate the facility for the city of Wilmington.
I don't want to turn this into a sales pitch, since Rob has assured me this is supposed to be a business straight line conversation, but obviously you are the people who we will be seeking out to develop those relationships with, and we pride ourselves, both the Braves and Mandalay, on being the type of creative marketers that will sit down with your marketing folks and come up with relationships and partnerships that move the needle for your business. We're not interested in taking a check and putting a sign up on the outfield fence and saying thanks very much, and people will see it when they come to the ballpark. That's not what this is all about for us. We want to sit down, understand your business, understand what generates the revenue that you're trying to generate, and work with you creatively to come up with promotions and the different types of activities that benefit both of us.
Question at table 9 from Fred.
Hi. My question is, you talked about some other potential good sites if the river situation doesn't work out. If you can share something about that with us, what those sites might be, and also what kind of projected ticket price are we looking at should everything go kind of according to plan here?
I'll take a shot very quickly, Fred, at the sites. We've had several folks that have approached us about potential sites, and those sites will be given to the project manager to evaluate, very similar to what we did with the convention center. They'll give us what they believe to be the best site, the second best site, third best site, fourth best site. But there are other sites that we will consider besides just downtown and evaluate that site based on a lot of different factors. But that project person will determine that and give us the feedback, and then obviously the ultimate decision will lie back to City Council as to which site we feel is the best in working with these folks here. And I'll let you talk about the ticket price.
Well, the ticket price question really goes to the heart of what this business is, and Bobby alluded to it before. This is affordable family entertainment. Our competition the movie theaters, for example. So our ticket prices will range anywhere from, on the low end, $5 to $7. Average ticket price probably $8 to $10. Interestingly enough, in every market's different. The premium tickets, the club seat tickets, for example, which are priced higher, are the ones that go the first and the fastest. And this ballpark, this multi-purpose facility, will have a range of ticket pricing for all different segments of the population, but the average ticket price is in the $8 to $10 range. It's a night out at the movies. It's not going to be the home of the $10 beer. It's going to be the home of a reasonably priced concessions menu.
I hope so.
Yeah, it is what it is. It's affordable family entertainment. We certainly don't want to. You don't want to cut off your nose to spite your face by trying to charge too much for what you're providing.
So another question on the location of the stadium. Is there less interest from the team, from Mandalay, from the city, if the downtown location just doesn't work? How does that, from all your perspectives, how does that change this project?
Well, I believe Rich alluded to the fact is, and the Braves have, that whether it's downtown or whether it's somewhere else within the city, they don't have any problem because they believe in Wilmington. They believe this is the right place for minor league franchise.
That's correct.
So from my perspective, obviously, I'm thinking about San Francisco Stadium, the giant stadium where you hit one into the river. I don't think you can hit one here into the river, but obviously downtown is a very attractive piece because of a lot of different reasons, in particular with infrastructure that's already in place, Riverwalk, parking decks that are already here, walkability to downtown, and it just makes for a very nice environment. But it may not happen downtown. We may not be able to negotiate a price with the landowner. We may not be able to do it downtown. So we have to evaluate all of the sites and give us a fair shot at this thing. So that's my perspective on it.
Yeah,
Anything else from the Braves?
we wholeheartedly agree. We're committed to Wilmington, be it downtown or somewhere else within the city.
Do you guys think that changed in terms of as an economic development project? Is there a rule of thumb for when a stadium goes in, how much development area there is around it to spur other development, or you look at it more on a regional basis? As to what
Rob, I have to say that from my perspective, at least I can only speak for myself, we're going to be looking at what the economic development opportunities are around that ballpark. The more that is there, the better the return on investment going forward in regards to tax receipts, property tax receipts, sales tax receipts. So we've got to take all that into consideration when we're evaluating this project. So that will be one of my main issues to focus on, is that return on investment based on development opportunities around the facility.
There's really two models from our experience. Mandalay's been in business in minor league baseball since 95, 96, 97, so it's been a while. Two of our projects are really the yin and yang of development projects. Downtown Dayton, Ohio, was a disaster. It was a dying city. And in the late 1990s, the city decided they had to do something pretty dramatic and committed to building a new minor league baseball facility called Fifth Third Field. That was the start of a chain reaction that just completely revitalized downtown Dayton. And as an aside, editorial comment, some of you are aware of this, Dayton Dragons last year broke the consecutive sellout streak for all of professional sports with 815 games sold. Every game in the Dragons' existence has been sold out, over 8,000 seats, over 8,000 people. The mayor has talked to the former mayor of Dayton, who's now in his 5th term in Congress in Washington. That really is viewed by the people in Montgomery County, Ohio, and the city of Dayton as the catalyst that really tipped Dayton back over in a positive way. We like the urban model. Think of Wrigley Field and Wrigleyville and around it. That's really cool stuff. On the other hand, our ballpark in Frisco, Texas, when I first saw that site, it's 23 miles as the crow flies north of DFW, next to Plano. There was nothing. I mean, there were tumbleweeds rolling across this thing. And I thought, whew, this ought to be interesting. Well, one of the photos is that ballpark down there. It's a beautiful photo. that spawned unbelievable economic development around that area. Now, admittedly, the Dallas-Fort Worth market's a little different than the Wilmington market, so I'm not comparing apples to apples in the sense of the overall scope of what's happened in Frisco to what could happen here. But that was away from downtown. It was out in an area that was undeveloped, but it still became the anchor tenant for development around it. So that goes a little deeper into why we feel that there are sites in this market that could be just as good in its own way or in their own way for economic development as a site on the river. Having said that, there's nobody in here who doesn't want to see this on the river. You have probably the last bit of waterfront real estate on the East Coast that you could do something like this with. And it will be a dramatic addition to and transformative addition to your downtown core. Just knock on wood. Hope that the site can be acquired.